Hello everyone, today we are in Greenwich, Connecticut visiting Betteridge Jewelers, one of our WAS stores where we're happy to display a lot of analog shift product. And I'm joined by Josh. How you doing, Josh?
Very good. Good morning. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. This is fun to be in Greenwich.
Yes, beautiful store.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's an incredible space. So we thought it would be kind of a fun exercise to go through some of the analog shift stock here in Greenwich and make a 2-watch collection each. So we've put together 2 pieces each. I think you got some interesting picks. So what's your first watch that you chose?
So, I mean, first of all, I went motorsport heavy. You know, we're in the F1 era. Perfect summer watches. So I'll start off with Heuer Carrera 2447, dating from the late 60s. Tritium dial, manual wind, Valjoux movement, kind of like quintessential mid-century chronograph. I would say the Carrera and just Heuer in general probably have the most motorsport DNA of any chronograph.
Yeah. This is what they're known for at the end of the day. It's a great wearing size.
I think it's like something like 35 millimeters, has a nice dome to the acrylic crystal. This example looks to be like unpolished, so lugs super sharp.
Yeah, and it has like an elongated lug profile, so I've always found that these wear sporty, so they look kind of timeless because on the one hand you have a slightly smaller diameter than a lot of new pieces, but it looks well proportioned, I think, pretty much no matter what the era is, which is kind of why this watch has remained so classy. I do like that watch. I personally prefer like a panda dial configuration.
Yeah, I would, but also pricing is probably double on those.
Yeah, that's true.
This, I mean, just a straight up black dial with black sub-registers just kind of works with anything strap wise.
So cool.
Really versatile, can go under the radar a bit. I just love the name Carrera too. Mm-hmm. You know, I believe Jack Heuer was inspired by the Carrera Panamericana. Yes, in Mexico, just this wild cross-country race through Mexico with various like European sports car manufacturers.
Yeah.
Just a lot of like nostalgia about this piece and Heuer itself. So I'm definitely feeling this at the moment.
Yeah.
How about you?
So
what's your choice?
For me, I went for diversity on my collection as a whole. So I'll start with what I consider to be the dressier piece. This is what has to be the most accessible Cintreé currently available from Analog Shift. This piece is rose gold. It has sort of a blackish gray dial, but it has the stylized numeral layout for 12 and 6. Otherwise, we have printed white indexes. It's a very cool look, but to me it gives you everything that is Cintreé in a little bit of a more accessible package. Gray strap, which looks kind of cool. They wear so well on the wrist because of that sort of curved and cambered side profile on the watch.
Crystal, the whole every aspect of the piece is kind of bent towards the wrist, which just makes it wear, in my opinion, probably the best of any of the traditionally men's Cartier pieces.
Yeah.
I've definitely got into those a lot recently, and like you were saying, this example for around 25,000 is like an amazing deal for what it is. Most of the Cintreés trade between, I would say, 50 to 100K.
Yeah, especially, I mean, this one's manually wound also, which is kind of cool. And the other part that people don't talk about a lot with Cintreé, or really Cartier in general, is on the case finishing side. I always love to see the sharp contrast between the brushed case flank and the high polish bezel. It's really sharp, and it sort of reminds me that Cartier is a watchmaker, but they're also a jeweler.
Yeah.
And so the case execution is absolutely fantastic. It's like,
I think with the brush side profile, it makes it a bit more sophisticated, and also just in terms of practicality, a brush finish hides any wear to the case better. So just love it.
Beautiful watch. It's a great piece, and it's everything that we love about Cartier.
Yes.
So what's your next pick?
Next, sticking with the motorsport theme, we have Omega Speedmaster HODINKEE special edition. This was inspired by the MK40 Speedmaster. It has the case of the reference 2998, which debuted in, I believe, 1959. You get this beautiful like pop of color with the central seconds hands, also sub-register at 9 o'clock. We get these huge luminous Arabic indices as well. You also get luminous hands. It's a like, kind of a nice contrast to the Carrera, just in terms of size difference and the pop of color. In my opinion, makes it feel a bit more modern and a bit more fun.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people, or you'll hear sometimes people will give that criticism to the regular moon watches. It just kind of a bit sterile. And I think this definitely like changes that up.
Yeah.
And I just love this, like, I think it's like 39.7 millimeter case size. I think it wears and also looks better than like the traditional twisted lug.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
The other thing that's cool is this one has the airplane seconds hand.
Yes.
Because as you said, this is inspired by triple calendar Speedmasters,
Yes.
which is super cool. It also has another aviation influence, which is the propeller seconds on the left side. Super cool. There's just a lot of fun details on this.
And this too is like a limited edition. They only made 500 pieces, so whenever they come up for sale, they're gone immediately. Yeah.
It's a cool watch. And as you said, I think it adds a little bit of character and fun to what could be an otherwise austere watch. Although I do think, you know, when you go into vintage and stuff, there's a lot to enjoy with Speedmaster in general. But this is certainly on the modern side, one of the more playful executions.
And I mean, I love how it has like a solid case back too. I'm personally not as big of a fan of like the sapphire sandwich. I always like and this. I think this has a sapphire crystal, but it still has a nice dome to it.
It feels like it gives you the vibe of the
Hesalite. Yeah, but
I agree.
Has the durability of the sapphire. But
just it's a great piece.
Really, really handsome watch.
And wears really well.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. So I went for my second piece for sporty and also casual. This kind of works in somewhat of an everyday environment. This is what I'd say AP would refer to as probably a 35 millimeter Royal Oak. And I think today a lot of people underestimate this sizing. They always think they have to go for the jumbo, the large watch.
41 millimeter, yeah.
I think, honestly, because of the case profile and how broad it is, on the wrist for a lot of wrists, this watch will actually wind up wearing better and looking more proportional. The other cool thing about this is this dial has just faintly and evenly aged. So the date window has this creamy color. The indexes have a creamy color. The dial has sort of patinaed ever so slightly. And so it's starting to get some of the vintage charm, but because it's more of a neo-vintage piece, you have the solidity of some of the more modern watches. The bracelet's pretty substantial. The clasp is a little bit more substantial than some of the early ones. I really like this piece. I think because of the fact that it's two-tone, it could work in a slightly more buttoned-up environment. I mean, if I wore this with what I'm wearing now, it would be totally fine. But it also would work as a more casual or sporty piece. So I think next to the Cintreé, I kind of have all bases covered, if that makes sense. And that's kind of my thinking behind that choice. But this one's in excellent condition. I mean, the bezel's impeccable.
Yeah, super. Like a lot of times you'll see these bezels like polished down to like almost like a sea stone, you know, like a sea pebble.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one still retains like sharp case lines. Let's see the bracelet size. Still has a good amount of links too.
It's beautiful.
And it has a little bit of stretch, but honestly, I think they wear more comfortably.
Yeah.
When they have a little bit of stretch. Like I was more in the camp initially of like I want zero stretch, you know, get it fixed. But after like having a watch that does have stretch, like I wouldn't go back, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't want one like crazy out of control, but this to me is still tight. It's like, you know, it's been broken in is the way I describe it. Like it's nice.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, one of the most important parts about buying any Royal Oak is you want case defining features to be intact.
And you want like the correct polishing, like what's brushed should be brushed and what's high polished should be high polished.
This piece is really, I think it preserves the character of the Royal Oak, and that's becoming more and more difficult to get as you move into neo-vintage and vintage pieces. Trying to find something in this kind of condition is actually tough. This is a clean example.
Yeah. I mean, these neo-vintage examples are really the sweet spot because you get like kind of the aesthetics sizing of a true vintage piece, but kind of the build quality of something newer. So just super wearable.
And it also will patina.
And it will patina too. Yeah, tritium. Beautiful.
It's beautiful. And as you can see, I mean, if I show you like on my wrist, for example, this watch is going to wind up wearing proportionally incredibly well. I have a relatively average-sized male wrist, so that should give you a pretty good depiction of what you might expect. So yeah, I think these are massively underrated. Automatic movement. You get a lot of what you're getting on a modern piece, fraction of the cost. And I would argue, and maybe you'll disagree with me, that there's a little bit more charm here than on a modern.
No, I agree.
I actually prefer this to the more expensive contemporary versions because this has some character. Which is, as we've discussed, all these picks are about character, whether it's on a design front, whether it's, a little bit of nostalgia or bringing a splash of color. I think these pieces have a little bit more than your conventional watch.
And just like thinking about like the overall themes of these two watch collection, I think we both chose kind of watches that operate in a similar realm to each other in terms of like that ethos of collecting. You don't necessarily have to have a different watch for every occasion. Like, people say, oh, you get one sport watch, then you get a dress watch, then get a beater watch. But I know tons of people who just collect one thing. You can just within like a 2447 Carrera, just with the dial variations, you can have 50 different Carreras, and that could be your thing.
100%.
Same, probably even more with like in the world of, you can have hundreds of different variations of Speedmasters. So I would say, you don't get like bogged down of what you read online or what other people say you think you should have. If you just like Carreras, just get Carreras, until you get sick of them. Yeah.
Well, that probably won't happen. But honestly, I think you did hit it. Like, even having two pieces and what would be considered a sports watch, it's a more dressy orientation for a sport watch. And in all honesty, I'm not a boxer, so I can, I can wear that. Like, it's not going to get really mashed up. I wish I had that lifestyle of someone who was adventurous, but I'm not. I mean, so this is a lot of fun. And thanks, Josh.
Yeah, of course.
It's been a lot of fun. And be sure to stop by Greenwich if you're here. Come to Betteridge, check out the analog shift display, and you can go and check out any of our selection within the other Watches of Switzerland associated stores, or come to the showroom in Manhattan, and you can see whole array
all these
of
pieces, many more. Yes.
Yeah, we have hundreds of watches to choose from. So if you want to go down the Speedmaster vertical, we've got them. So or any of these pieces.
Yeah.
So thanks for checking this out, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all the exciting content we got on the way. See you next time.